Welcome to Plasticity in Action, a program brought to you by the Village Chicago and Movement Revolution. This is a recording of a live event. There was a lively Q&A after this presentation, which was not recorded. Presenters of this program are Eric Johnson, the founder of Movement Revolution, a neuroexercise specialist by trade, and they see anyone with any neurological condition with a strong focus on exercise and lifestyle in partnership with Brooke Nani, working at the Village Chicago as brain health and memory loss program manager. So thank you all for attending Plasticity in Action. Eric and I are excited to do this little dual presentation for you all. What to expect. So we're going to get into a few different topics. So it'll be kind of fun here. We're going to learn or review, maybe take you back to high school science a little bit, just some basics about the brain and about brain cells so that we can understand the concept of what is brain plasticity and how does it relate to kind of the biology of the brain. We'll delve a little bit into the history because in neuroscience, things are changing all the time, even in the last 100 years or so. So kind of a newer topic and a lot of great research is going into this. We will talk about general ways to enhance lifestyle to affect brain plasticity in a positive way. We will talk about what is movement revolution, some of the services and areas that they will delve into with folks. Talk a little bit about exercise, aerobic and strength training specifically, how that relates to plasticity. And then we will kind of conclude with a little note about mindfulness and brain health. And if time permits, we'll get to play with that a little bit and try it out. So that is what you all can expect. Starting again with the basics. So a neuron is really just a fancy term for a brain cell. This little visual that you see here has all the different parts of a neuron. Thought it was just a fun way to think of things conceptually. It is the basic building block of the nervous system, but we're really going to focus on the brain in this presentation today. A synapse or synapse, I've heard it pronounced both ways, but it is a gap or junction that allows these brain cells to communicate with each other, either through electric or chemical signals. But chemical is the most common. You've probably all heard of adrenaline. If we're doing something really exciting or we're threatened by something, our heart starts pumping because adrenaline is a brain chemical that's going on at that time. Or you may have heard also about dopamine, which we can kind of think of as like our happy, positive brain chemical. And those are how we communicate. So then we'll jump into the brain biobasics. So there's actually three parts of our brains. All are featured here. This bottom bit is the brain stem. Then we've got the cerebellum, which is really like a balance and movement hub for us. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the general functions of each of the brain lobes, which are also featured here. So for the frontal lobe, it's kind of right here at the front of our heads, hence the name, very creative there, in pink. It is the largest, and it has to do with our personalities, our decision-making, our movement in tandem with the cerebellum, and then our expressive language. So me thinking of the words to say to you all right now is tapping into a Broca's area in the frontal lobe. Then there's a parietal lobe, which is featured here in yellow. Primary functions there are to identify objects that we're seeing, spatial relationships, interpreting pain and touch, so kind of sensory elements, and then receptive language. So when I am processing information that I'm hearing or reading, that's in a totally different area of the brain called the Wernicke's area. And I bring that up because I think it's easy to say, well, where does language happen in the brain? But this is to emphasize that even language, can be further divided into different functions. So, the whole brain can tap into different areas in terms of functions. So this is kind of like a loose overview of what's going on. This green area is located on the sides of the brain. So you can think of it as like right here. It is responsible for short-term memory, speech, sounds, music, and some smell. Within this area is a little part of the brain called the hippocampus. I think that's from Greek term for seahorse, if I'm correct on that. Don't quote me on that. But it's a really important part of the brain, and I call it out specifically because it's often smaller in folks that have Alzheimer's disease. It is in charge of learning, memory, and navigation or spatial areas. And I'll kind of jump back to that area shortly when we're talking more about the concept of plasticity, but it's right there within the temporal lobe. And then finally, the occipital lobe is this kind of purple gray at the back right above the cerebellum, and that is primarily involved with vision. So now that we got the basics, let's jump into what the heck is brain plasticity. And I want to start with what we used to think. So, kind of the history of this. I'm sure everyone here has heard the phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And in fact, our brain is able to adapt to its environment no matter what age we are, although it's a lot more rapid of a process when we are younger. The good news is that we used to think, okay, our brains are inflexible. They are like computers. So computers were really big around that time. We thought that things were essentially programmed, and at a certain age, we're not able to make changes to our brain. About 100 years ago, someone said, wait, I think the brain is flexible, but without being able to prove that, it wasn't really until the 1960s when the idea kind of took off. And people said, wow, this plasticity concept is in fact a real thing and a cool thing. Let's look into it more. Keep in mind, this is not solely due to ignorance or someone denying science, but we had very limited scientific technology at that time. So we weren't able to see microscopic changes in the brain that now we're able to. So now we're able to see what's going on with this flexible brain concept. So really, what is it, Brooke? What is brain plasticity? It is the ability of your brain to change by reorganizing either its structure, its functions, or its connections when stimulated. So I want to do a little experiment with you all. And if you've got your videos on, you can turn it off if you're afraid of others seeing you try this experiment. But I'm going to do a 3-movement sequence, and I want you to do it along with me. Just give it a shot. So we are going to clap, then we're going to touch our nose and our ear with opposite hands, and then we're going to switch and repeat. So it's clap, touch, touch, clap. Okay, are we trying it out? If you have not practiced this like I have, I'm guessing that task is a little bit challenging for you. Might feel a little bit unbalanced, uncoordinated. What the heck am I doing? What are these movements? But that is the very beginning of the plasticity process. So when something is new to us, the more that we are doing that, we are strengthening connections. And the more that we stimulate ourselves by things from the environment, the more that our brain is able to adapt. If you were to think of this concept very simply, it's really just learning. When we are learning, we are showing that our brains are plastic. They're able to rewire or change function. Even things like skills. Perhaps you have a hobby of woodworking, 3D printing, foreign language, musical instruments, or anything else. I'm guessing that the first time you did it, it wasn't the most simple thing for you. But when you kept it up and repeated that, that was strengthening the connection, and you got better at that. And maybe you've done that skill so much that it has become a muscle memory to you. Maybe you don't even need to think about it when you're jumping into that task or skill when initially you may have. So getting into the technical definition here, structural brain plasticity, and as you can see, there's a few different kinds, but we're going to talk about structural here today, is a change of the physical structure of your brain as a result of learning. It involves reshaping neurons, rewiring your brain. It can be helpful to think of those neuronal connections, those connections between our brain cells, as roads. One of my colleagues kind of put this metaphor to me, and I enjoyed thinking about it this way. If we've got enough roads, we've got enough brain connections, then even if there is road work or a stalled vehicle or traffic happening, we've got other roads that we can use to get to our destination. So, kind of a fun way to think about it is if we are doing a lot and stimulating ourselves and having an engaging environment, then we're truly able to get around neuropathology, cell death, brain damage. So the goal of this is to make a ton of paths that we can tap into so that even if something gets in the way, we'll still be able to get that task done. I've got a little video here. It's only 3 minutes and it kind of just conceptualizes plasticity. But I will share these slides with everyone. So if you'd like to check that out, I encourage you to. There will also be references listed if you want to look further into any of these areas, but we'll skip that for right now. So that is what brain plasticity is. Now we'll go into some of the kind of characteristics of brain plasticity. Our brains love challenge and novelty, newness. So we will actually, as long as that challenge is not frustrating, then we'll kind of steer clear of it. But generally, we are looking for a challenge and we are looking for newness. So we'll talk on the next slide about how that can actually look in terms of adjusting our lifestyle. But just thinking characteristics, we like challenge, we like newness, we like intention. So if we're going into something with intention, we're able to pay attention to that item specifically. We're not like trying to multitask and focus on other things. And then, as I sort of alluded to, repetition and intensity are also key here, which can seem kind of like, well, why do we like newness? But then you're also saying repetition. That doesn't make sense. Well, we need both. So you can think of when there's something new that's happening, like for example, that activity we just did, there's a new connection between brain cells. And initially it's kind of weak, but as we continue, as we repeat that, it gets stronger and we're able to do it with less of a challenge involved. So those are the characteristics of this concept of brain plasticity. And then we'll get into kind of the real life aspect of things. So how does our environment affect plasticity slash what can we do to try to encourage positive plasticity in our daily lives? So I'll start with things that are not so great for the brain plasticity process. And these are probably not surprising to you all. These include things like stress, really chronic stress. Routine stress is fine, can even be good for us, can help us get out of a threatening situation. But when that becomes chronic, that can truly be detrimental to the plastic process. Sleep deprivation, which is tough because as we get older, we're waking up a little more. It might be harder to keep that sleep routine, but deprivation itself, not great for plasticity. Aging, although no matter what age we are, we're able to still tap into this plastic process. It's a lot faster and more efficient when we are maybe in our teens and 20s versus later on in our lives, but it always happens. This one I thought was particularly interested. If someone has if someone has a swallowing disorder like a dysphagia, and they need to alter their diet, so perhaps they can't have a steak and French fries anymore, but they have to kind of blend that and make it softer. If that means that there is no chewing, that's actually not great for brain plasticity. So the process of chewing itself is good for plasticity. I thought that one was interesting. We want to kind of avoid fried foods, particularly because they are high in saturated and trans fats, which are not great for cardiovascular health or brain health, which are usually strongly correlated. Smoking, alcohol, although some people might argue with me and tell me there's antioxidants in alcohol, I'll refer you to your doctor for that one, but generally not the best. Head injuries, general lack of engagement, not ideal, and then a lack of sensory or emotional nourishment may in fact be detrimental to brain health. So what's good then? What should we do? What should we incorporate to our routines to increase plasticity in a positive way? Well, diet is huge, and this is an ongoing research base. So check this out further if you're interested in diet. But generally, blueberries are excellent for our brain health. Flavonoids are a specific antioxidant, great for brain health. Omega-3 fatty acids, which a lot of people think of as like a fish, but it could also be things like walnuts and I think even kiwi. And then sticking with a low saturated fat, low trans fat diet. All of that is going to be excellent for boosting our brain health, boosting the plastic process. They had a little term heart, which I really enjoyed. But love itself increases oxytocin. So go hang out with your friends and family and express your love, but also joy, interest, excitement, and positive social relationships are excellent for brain plasticity. Negative social relationships are not that much. So it could be a great idea to keep strong positive connections in your life. And then we'll go into the mind, which is really broad of a topic. Obviously, we're talking about brain health, so mind is going to be heavy there. But things that are good for plasticity when it comes to the mind are learning, reading, writing, problem solving, musical training, especially if you are reading sheet music as well, having a good discussion of ideas with others, cognitive work, and a concept called cognitive reserve. And spirit, Eric is actually going to educate us a little bit more and do a little demo of this if time permits. But spirit includes mindfulness meditation, compassion meditation. It could include religious activities if you are, in fact, religious. But just tapping into spirit in general can be excellent for plasticity. And then we'll end with the body. So that includes things like sleep. It includes things like listening to music. So it's not just being a musician that's good, but it's also listening and understanding, maybe hearing what the different instruments that are being played are. Being out in nature, especially for walking in nature, that's like a double positive. And then new sensory experiences. So even thinking of like I know they have museums now that are interactive and you can touch things and there's visual stimulation. So things like that are going to be excellent for brain health, brain plasticity. And then finally, exercise. So I will not say too much about that. I know Eric's going to get into that piece with us here shortly. So I will stop my share just for right now to see if anyone has any questions about that stuff so far.
All right, sounds good. Let me share my screen here. I'm going to be kind of going back and forth. This is going to be a little bit of education and talking about exercise and what we do, what we deem as neuro-intensive exercise. And then we're also going to do, I'm going to get you guys moving a little bit. We're going to experience some of these things. So as we start to move, make sure you have a little bit of room if you want to participate with us to move your bodies and not knock a partner next to you and do so safely. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to be talking about something I really enjoy talking about, and how do we excite the brain through exercise? How do we get all these neurons firing better, faster, stronger, with stronger signals and stronger results? So exercise has been widely studied and really shown that it can certainly do these things. So I'm happy to get you going and talking about some of these things that we do here today. I kind of already did an intro about myself, so I'm not going to really dive into that. But just our mission here at Movement is to empower people with neurological conditions to live stronger each and every day. And that mission kind of goes beyond just a typical average workout. I mean, I think the things that we're going to talk about today and how neuroplasticity and the brain kind of helps us when we are exercising, it all comes down to how can we live better each and every day with a proper exercise routine. It's not just about going to the gym and lifting your weights and getting stronger, but it's like, how does that workout truly impact how you function and feel each and every day? And talking about brain health, there's a litany of research to show how important regular continuous exercise is, and we'll kind of dive a little bit more into what that's going to look like here today. I'll try not to go too fast, and again, I will try to be as concise as I can, but um, we kind of coined our methods here at Movement what we call neuro-intensive exercise. So we want to take all those principles of neuroplasticity that Brooke just mentioned and really, put that into a consumable exercise program. Like, how do we take all these methods and apply it into something that's going to truly function and help me feel better each and every day and help our clients feel better each and every day? So what we do is we take that all the research that's been done on aerobic endurance training, strength training, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, tai chi, and what does all that research say? And then how do we apply those principles into understanding the effects of Alzheimer's disease, dementia, Parkinson's disease, post-stroke, brain health in general, to help people develop an exercise program that truly affects how they move each and every day. So that's kind of our method and kind of how we approach our exercise routines when we're building them for people. And the one thing I definitely suggest is whether you're really active right now or you're just getting started with a routine, try to build a routine that's very specific to what you want to accomplish and work on. And that just starts by kind of understanding a lot of these basic principles, but then also working with someone, whether that's a physical therapist or an exercise professional, to make sure that you're getting good guidance to make sure that you're getting the results that you want. You're putting a lot of time and effort into exercise. It's hard work. You get sweaty and you might get a little sore, and you just want to make sure that all that that pain and that energy is working for you the best way possible. So that's what we'll try to kind of get you on the right path for today. But I think I want to just touch briefly on something that Brooke had discussed, and that was all these different components of brain health and neuroplasticity and the different things that can really impact neuroplasticity. And truly, when we're looking at an exercise program, the more and more research that comes out, it's not just about what the exercise can do for your brain, but it's what all these other components of wellness can help you be more efficient with your day-to-day function. I mean, I think that's why we all exercise, right? We all want to exercise because we know it's good for our bodies, it's good for our hearts, it's good for our brains, it's good for preventing cardiovascular disease or managing cardiovascular disease. All these other components, the social and emotional aspects of our daily life, sleep quality, diet, nutrition, are equally as important. And all of those other components really help you exercise more efficiently. So when we're talking about developing an exercise program and neuroplasticity, we also want to make sure that we don't forget all of these other factors that come along with it. We've had several anecdotal stories of a lot of our clients affected by Parkinson's disease, and there's a lot of components associated with all these different factors that may be impacted by the disease process and some of the symptoms. But I've seen a tremendous impact of people who exercise the hardest, and they're working out extremely hard, big, high intensities, which we'll talk about is so important. Yet their symptoms continued to be a big struggle, and their medications weren't working quite as well. We've had some people who have changed one of these components in a very significant way, diet, nutrition being one of them. What we take into our bodies makes a huge impact as to how your body responds and can function day in and day out. And this person significantly made a change in their diet and their nutrition, and their medications are working better, their sleep is better, they're not as stressed, and it's helped them exercise a lot better as well. So I just wanted to make sure we spent just a quick minute to discuss all of these components as we get into exercise here. So let's do this. So we're exercising for our mind today. I have 3 small children at home, so they were very adamant about me keeping this slide in the presentation for today because there are many components of exercise that we're going to discuss, all of which are very, very healthy for our brain. So we're going to go through each of these: cardiovascular and aerobic exercise, strength exercise, and mindfulness, kind of meditation, stretching, and relaxation work as well, because all of these have been shown to be very beneficial and have their own neuroplastic benefits. So I think we'll start with the one that's probably the most widely studied at this point, and that being aerobic or endurance training or cardiovascular exercise. So I wanted to go through and give you guys some general recommendations as to what research shows and what the American College of Sports Medicine really recommends as to what is the frequency and intensity that we want to achieve when looking at building an aerobic endurance exercise program. And these are all based upon a lot of the research that's been shown to elicit a neuroplastic effect. So, as Brooke mentioned, we want to be exercising repeatedly, right? In order to elicit neuroplasticity, we need to be rigorous or intense with whatever we do, whether that's um, you know, standing up and down out of a chair or walking. We need to practice these things repeatedly. And when we do that, we want to excite the body and the brain to be moving as rigorously as possible. What that does is just excites the brain even more, has more neuronal activation, more motor unit recruitment, which helps stimulate like when we move our muscles more rigorously or more intensely, it helps stimulate more neurons in our brain. And so one of the best ways to do that, what's been shown, is that rigorous cardiovascular exercise has been linked to managing the progression of many diseases like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, and dementia. And what's been shown to be very effective is doing this consistently and intensely. So 5 to 7 days per week, and the frequency often depends upon how rigorous that activity is. So if you want to exercise very rigorously, you only need to do that 3, maybe 4 days a week. And when I talk about intensity and rigor, I think it's also really important to define like what that is. What does that feel like? So there are a couple different ways that we do that. We can do that by using a heart rate tracker, maybe a Fitbit, an Apple Watch. I have a Garmin watch or an Android watch, a smartwatch of any kind, really. There's also heart rate monitors that you can wear on your forearm or on your chest when you're exercising. This is really the best way to gauge intensity of heart rate. There's quite a few studies that look at how do we elicit neuroplastic effect from aerobic exercise. And that's shown that whatever we do, we have to achieve 80 to 85% of your maximum heart rate in order to get this neuroplastic response. That's not to say that exercising at 60 to 75% of your max heart rate doesn't have a neurological benefit, but the best results have come from something that's more rigorous. And that might take time for you to build up to. You can't just jump into an exercise routine and achieve 80 to 85% of your max heart rate. It is definitely a progressive program that you need to develop in order to do that safely. But no, so that, monitoring your intensity is I think, very, very important to get them. If you're going to go do your exercise, try to get the most out of that activity, unless you're doing it for pleasure or a casual walk with friends. The intensity certainly matters. So I think the important thing to note, though, is if you're on a beta blocker or a medication that affects your heart rate, the measure of your heart rate is not going to be an accurate way to monitor your intensity. So we use what's called an RPE scale, or a rate of perceived exertion scale. And that scale is between 6 and 20. Really, it's kind of awkward numbers. But what that does is it kind of correlates to average heart rate as you're exercising. So 6 would be sitting here, listening to this presentation, relaxed on the couch, whatever it might be. 20 is can't take another breath, falling off the machine, falling on the ground, working so intensely. And so, as you can see, like within that scale, that 14 to 18 is pretty rigorous and intense. And that's ideally where we want to be. But anywhere between 11, 12, 13, 14, these are all good places to start. I think the true measure there is like, how do I tell how rigorously I'm working out? Well, if you're breathing heavy, if you're starting to sweat a little bit, those are all good indications that you are working at a rigorous enough pace to make a meaningful difference. And the whole goal then is to extend that period of time in which you can sustain that effort level. So actually, one thing I didn't include in here is what the duration might be. So 5 to 7 days a week, rigorous intensity, moderate to rigorous intensity, and then you want to sustain that for 20, ideally 30 to 45 minutes. So anywhere between 20 minutes and 45 minutes. 30 minutes is kind of what you want to shoot for. But that's kind of general aerobic exercise and what we want to look for. But that's been shown to boost our hormone responses in our body in relation to exercise, to help us manage not only neuroplasticity, but systemic inflammation in your body, and it has a great immune response. So it's not just isolated to making your brain healthy or your heart healthier. It helps all the systems of your body function much, much better. There's been a lot of research on aerobic exercise in general. So, I think we all know what some of these examples might be. Probably all been to the gym before, or hopefully you're out going for walks, but general cycling, aerobic exercise, classes, elliptical, boxing classes. We do some of those for our clients with PD. Again, something that's rigorous, that's getting you moving in a lot of different directions. So I want to try some of this. If you guys are up for it, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Can you guys see me okay? All right, so make sure you have some room to move. I am going to move my chair back, adjust my screen a little bit. We are going to be trying to get our heart rates up here for 3 minutes. Okay, so we're going to do 3 minutes of movement without stopping. All right, so make sure you have enough room out in front of you and to your side, like I don't have. And then you'll also want to have some room out in front of your feet as well, because we're going to be using our legs. And a big thing that we want to do is we're going to be moving your entire body. To get our heart rates up, you might notice, like if you're on a bicycle and seated, it's harder to get your heart rate up than it is when you're out for a walk, or you're on the treadmill, or you're doing a boxing class. And that's because we're not using our whole body if you're on a bike. You're only using your legs. So our goal here is to move our entire body through the next 3 minutes. So I have my watch here. I want everyone to sit up nice and tall in your chair. Make sure you have a good stable surface to work off of. If the chair is really wobbly, if it spins, if you're on a desk chair, make sure you're aware of that. Find a more comfortable, sturdy chair to work with. But sit up nice and tall in our seats. Let's just start with a march. And I want arms and legs marching with us. The clock hasn't started yet, but I'll start it right now. So we're going to high knee march. I want high effort, driving those knees up as high as you can. Just a casual march here. Talk about that RPE scale. This is probably like a 10, right? We want to go, again, to that 14 to 18. So we're driving those knees up and driving those arms up nice and big, okay? Now, what also is going to help, okay? Talk about neuronal excitement, kind of exciting that brain as much as we can. Using your voice is going to be very, very important to help elicit bigger movement and better movement. All right, so we're going to count out 10 more of these, and I want you to shout it out nice and loud. Let your neighbors know what we're doing here. Let's count out 10 more. 1, reach up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a little louder. 8, 9, 10. Now, I want you to rock from side to side. Relax the legs for now. I just want you to reach and rock from one side to the other. Reach those hands up nice and big, nice and tall, maybe increase the speed just a little bit. All right. So we're going to do more of a lateral shift and lean, requiring a different set of core muscles. Now, what I want you to do is if I'm reaching to the right, kick with the left leg. Come back down. Reach to the right, kick with the left. And we're going to go side to side, opposite arm, leg, kick and reach. Okay. Kick and reach. So when we're working opposite arm and leg, we have to use a different set of core muscles really associated with movement and walking, right? So that's what we're going for here. Let's do 10 more of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to reach down to the floor, up to the ceiling, down to the floor, all the way up nice and tall. Okay, got 5 more of these. Reach down low, punch those hands up high. Down, there's 2. Down, 3, down, 4, down, and 5. Let's get those hands right back up. We got 1 more minute to go. Let's kick those feet out to the front. Okay, kicking those feet out in front of you, right to left. Now we're going to add a punch, opposite arm, opposite leg punch. Punch it out, breathe it out. Okay, maybe add a little rotation into that punch. Again, moving your body in a lot of different directions here. Kick and punch, kick and punch. Hopefully you're breathing a little heavy. If you're not, move a little bigger. Here we go. Okay. Last one. Now, I want you to step out to the side, same arm, same leg. We have 10 of these. Okay. If you want to go both arms together at the same time, if you got the space for it, let's do it all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, a little faster, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. That was 3.5 minutes. Nice work, everybody. How are we feeling? We good? All right. So hopefully your heart rate's up, blood is flowing, right? Maybe a little sweat going. I don't know. I sweat really easily, so. But hopefully that gets your body excited. You feel just a little bit better, right? Maybe the head's a little more clear. Even short breaks. I know I said 20 to 45 minutes, but short breaks in duration like that, we did everything from a seated position, right? So all the excuses of I need to go to the gym or I can't make it to the gym, they're gone. Even just doing a few things like that throughout the day, super beneficial. Just from a blood flow perspective, just from just kind of a brain activity perspective, just to get the blood flowing and kind of get you started. That's a great way to start the day, actually. I'm going to go back and share my screen here, hopefully the proper way. Just one screen?
Looks good.
Perfect. Okay. So happy to answer any questions about aerobic exercise as we go here.
I have a question, Eric.
Yes.
So 40 to 45 minutes of rigorous to moderate intensity. So that's one stretch. So is there any theory behind doing it intermittently? Let's say you split it into 4 or 5 sessions, but very high intensity throughout the day. Is that of equal value or is that detrimental?
It's a great question. And, there's some research that supports both. So when just starting a program, sorry, for some reason, my slideshow isn't advancing. Some research shows that the sustained duration of 30 minutes is very, very important to stress the brain, stress the heart, and the cardiorespiratory system for sustained effort or a bout. That being said, there is also research that shows short bursts or shorter bursts of 10 or 15 minutes of activity. It still shows a lot of benefit from a brain health standpoint. I can't speak specifically to neuroplasticity on that front, but certainly you still receive the benefits of that aerobic exercise if it's broken up into smaller chunks. I will say if you have a shorter chunk that you can only manage throughout the day, try to make that shorter chunk more rigorous or intense. If it's only 10 minutes, try to get that heart rate up really quickly within that workout, increase resistance on the bike, incline on the treadmill, increase the pace a little bit from the beginning, and that's going to keep your heart rate and kind of maximize the effort there for a shorter period of time. Let me see here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let me try to share my screen again. For some reason that didn't work last time. Okay. I think I probably have to do this again. Is that okay?
That looks good.
Better?
Back to the beginning, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
There we go. Okay. So let's talk about strength training. And I know there might be a few more questions. I can get to those at the end here. What is strength training? It has a lot of different forms. And I think when people think about strength exercise, we typically think about going to the gym, hitting the machines or free weights. It doesn't have to be that. I think one of the things that we really focus on is how do you move your body repeatedly over time to make it as powerful and as strong as it can be. I think we like to think of things in building strength very functionally because, as Brooke had mentioned before, This neuroplastic effect requires a lot of repetition. So if it's difficult for you to get off that couch because it's so deep, or in and out of the car because it's just a challenging thing to do, we need to repeat a task that's very similar to that time and time and time again. And we don't necessarily need to add a whole lot of resistance to that. We just need to add repetition so we can build that motor plan and the functional muscular strength up in a way where that task itself can be improved. So it doesn't have to be free weights. Today, I have a couple of things that we can use for resistance at home, but it doesn't have to include additional weight. Your body weight and how you move your body is one of the most important functional things we can do. So can you use machines at the gym? 100%. Can you add resistance by using free weights and machines? Yes, and there's a ton of benefit to that. Again, it kind of comes back to that intensity principle where we want to stress the body and the brain to be excited enough to make a change, right? I think Brooke said it before, there needs to be a challenge. And there's a famous quote that says, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And that is very true. When it comes to all exercise and all brain activity, we have to challenge the brain to make a difference. So adding additional resistance and weights can be very, very beneficial. Let's start by moving your body well first. So in terms of suggested frequency and intensity, a lot of the research shows that we want to do some sort of strength exercise training 2 to 3 days per week, depending on what your schedule is and depending on kind of what your goals are for your exercise routine. There's also some really interesting research on, especially within an aging population, the difference between building strength versus building power. So the difference here is, I could go to the gym and go on the leg press machine where it's like a sled where you kind of push your legs away from you. And I can be really, really strong with that movement. My quadriceps can be really, really tight. The muscles in the top side of my legs can be really, really strong with that particular movement. But does that strength generate enough power for me to get in and out of a really low surface? Maybe, but maybe not. If you think about getting out of maybe a chair that you're sitting in right now, that might be relatively easy for you to stand out of, that's not going to require a whole lot of power, right? The higher the surface, standing up out of your bed, off the side of your bed, doesn't require a whole lot of power, right? You're already elevated. There's not a whole lot of muscle recruitment we need to achieve that task. But if you go to a lower surface, a low car, a couch, what have you, going up a tall stair versus a shallow stair, this is an example where we need more power to stand up, more force to stand up out of those low surfaces or step up onto those high surfaces than we really do strength. And so the difference is we want velocity and speed and force when we're standing up off that low surface. We just have to typically do that, hopefully just one time, or going up and down the stairs, you might need to do that maybe 3 times, but we need enough power to generate that really powerful strength that we're kind of counterintuitive. We need a lot of power and a lot of strength to support the power to make those movements more efficient and adaptable. So I'll show you an example of that here in a second. But I guess I don't need to add a whole lot to that other than let's try a few things out. I just want to make sure we keep an eye on the time as well. And sorry for continuing to go back and forth on sharing versus not sharing, but hopefully this is okay. Again, let's get in a good position to move. All right. So the first exercise we're going to do is probably something very basic for some of us, maybe a larger challenge for others, but it's probably something you've all practiced before if you've taken an exercise class anywhere, right? It's a basic sit to stand. But I want to kind of do this to reiterate the importance of power versus just strength. Okay. So first things first, again, make sure you're on a sturdy chair. It's not going to roll away from you if we go to stand up. If you're on a couch, this is great practice. But the first thing we want to do is have a good setup, right? We want to be making sure that you're scooted forward to the edge of your seat. You want your feet to be shoulder width apart, okay? We don't want them to super, super wide. If they're outside the legs of the chair, that's way too wide, all right? So either shoulder to hip width apart, or maybe just on right inside the legs of the chair that you're sitting on. You want your heels to be tucked underneath you, all right? Before we even go to stand up, now we're in a good position position. Edge of your seat, feet tucked under you, legs wide. The legs wide are really important because that gives us the best base of support to stand up with good power and balance. Right? If our feet are really close together, we don't have the same muscle recruitment that we do if we're in this position here. Here we can use all the big muscles in our legs to make sure we have enough leverage to get ourselves up. But before we go to stand up, if you're far back on that seat and you try to go just stand straight up, it's really hard to do, right? So we have to use our body's biomechanical levers to make sure that we're loading the pressure in those legs as best we can. So the first thing I like to start with is just kind of a lean forward. You can put your hands on your legs if you want. If you don't need to, you can kind of reach those hands forward. And what that does is if you feel this, you're going to feel like those feet or your body weight is kind of rocking right over the feet. So as we rock forward, I want you to feel your whole foot pressing into the floor. The whole foot is pushing down into the ground. Big toes, heels, arch of your foot pressing into the ground, because that's our kind of our springboard to stand up. Now, all we have to do is once you get your body weight over your feet, you stand up nice and tall, right? And then as you come down, I want you to sink down as slow as you can. And before you do that, reach those hands out in front of you. Keep reaching those hands forward. Put a little bit more weight into your heels. Keep your big toes on the floor and sit down nice and slow. So when we're talking about building strength, right? We do that a couple of ways. Repetition, or what we call time on tension. How much tension do we have on these muscles? And when you sit down nice and slow, how many of you going to sit down in a chair and just kind of plop back down into it, right? That's a lack of like eccentric control of these muscles. So this is a great place to practice power as we go up, strength and stability as we come down. So let's rock forward again, power up with a lot of strength, right? And now from here, we're going to go slow and steady, control on the way down. Kind of be aware of those muscles on your top of your thighs, the back side of your legs. They're working, and just try to sink down as slow as you can. If that's painful on your knees, all right, if you have arthritis in the knees, loading a little bit more weight into your heel should help a little bit. But if it is painful in your knees, there's always adaptations we can make. Don't do too many of these. But when we go to stand up, when we want to generate more power, getting your body in a good position helps us generate power. If you've done a bridge exercise before, this is a great place to practice. We're going to lean forward, and then once the body weight is over the feet, you're going to bridge up and spring up nice and strong. For a lot of our clients who've worked with us before, we call these power ups. Because if you think, let's sit down slow. I could talk all day, so sorry. When we go to stand up out of a chair, if it's hard for you to stand out of a surface, you're thinking, I can never get out of this couch. I can never get out of the car. If you're thinking about how hard it is, that is a barrier. Your mind just shuts it down right away. It's gonna be a lot harder for you to do it. Think of it as a powerful move. I just need to power up out of this seat. Your mindset and how you approach these exercises helps immensely. Increased power has been shown at decreasing fall risk, okay? So when we want to generate power, especially in this position, we want to really work on standing up with enough stability and power as possible. If you need something to hold on to, when you generate that much force and power, you might start to lose your balance as you go to get up. So make sure there's something around for you to grab onto if you need to. Sit down nice and slow. Let's rip out 3 more of these, nice and strong, nice and powerful. Ready? And power up. And then slowly come back down, slow and steady. Feel the burn in those legs. Oh, I see some of you sitting down already. A little too fast. Ready? Power up. Slow and steady. Hips are pushing back into the seat. Weight is in your heels, a little bit in your big toes. Super slow. Good. And power up. Nice job. Super slow on the way down. All right. Very nice. Okay, so I know for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through a whole lot more, and I'm happy to answer more questions about strength. But I think that that's kind of a good way to, it's a very functional exercise, right? We all have to do it many, many times throughout the day. And in order to get better at it, we have to practice it more for repetition. So how are we doing with time, Brooke?
Got about 6 minutes left.
Okay. Let's do this here. Is that showing up properly?
Looks good.
Cool. I think the last thing I want to talk about, mindfulness, breath work, and meditation. We'll just do one quick exercise because I think it's really important. I think, I hate to keep bringing things back to the pandemic because we're so removed from it, but I think since then we've all been on this, heightened state of maybe increased stress. There's a lot more worries in the world that are on our minds, and especially as we all get older, I think there are additional stressors that come to mind, whether that's a certain diagnosis or your health or family or whatever it might be. And I think when we think about all the benefits of neuroplasticity and how our brain works, there are also ways where neuroplasticity, unfortunately, can work against us when in a high stressful state. The brain responds to stress very similarly that it does to exercise. Exercise is a form of stress, but too much stress, as Brooke mentioned, is something that we kind of want to avoid. We have to find ways when our brain is really overexcited about stress, anxiety, whatever it might be. We have to find ways to relax it. A lot of times, aerobic exercise and strength exercise can certainly help. But before we go to bed at night, doing some of these mindfulness and breath work, meditation exercises helps immensely with sleep quality and just overall management of stress throughout the day. So you guys may have done some of these before, but essentially what we want to do is kind of help to reset some of these really intense responses, and we have a very large nerve that controls a lot of how our body functions and our nervous system called the vagus nerve. And some of these exercises really can help relax and kind of reset that to help us manage things like inflammation, digestive health, relaxation, blood pressure, sleep, so on and so forth. So I highly recommend, if you guys have more interest in this, definitely do some research, talk to your doctor about it, seek some services to help with yoga, tai chi, meditation. There are some great apps on your phone that you can take advantage of, and I'm sure some classes, I think that the village probably participates in as well, that will be very beneficial. So let's just practice breathing. All right. So after all that intense work, I think it's really, really important to find a way, and just an easy technique to breathe in and out. And sometimes a visual stimulus really helps with that. So what's going to happen here is this little ball on the screen is going to grow. And as that ball grows, I want you to take a big deep breath in through your nose. So the ball is going to grow. You're going to deep breath in through your nose until it gets as big as it is. And as it starts to shrink, I want you to push all that air out. So essentially, it's going to be a 5-second inhale with a 5-second exhale. All right. We'll try this twice. We'll try it 2 times. Okay. If you want to, well, don't close your eyes. I want you to watch the ball. But try to find a comfortable seat, a comfortable position to where you are. So I'm going to start it now. Inhale and exhale. Let's do that again. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Power 3. Let's do it. Inhale. Exhale. All right. Thank you. I know it's very simple, very basic. Thank you for doing that with me. But something as simple as that can really go a long way. If we're super stressed, if we're driving in the car and traffic is terrible, which it always is this time of year, it's a great exercise to do just to help calm your brain down, calm your mind down. I think it's going to help you refocus and reset as well. So I'll get to it because I know we're running out of time. I wanted to show you guys just a quick video, like what is this neurointensive exercise thing that we do. And this is just a little example of some of our clients that we work with, and a lot of the different functional strength exercises that we might participate in to make either exercise really rigorous, from a strength focus, from a dual tasking, which is something we didn't talk about today. But this is just kind of an idea of what it looks like in action. Very dynamic. So just a little bit about the services that we provide. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to be a resource. We have locations here in the Chicagoland area. The one thing I mentioned before is when you have questions about exercise or what you should be doing, seek a skilled professional to help kind of write the roadmap for you to figure out what you need to work on specifically. That's really, really important. So one of the things that we take all of our clients through from the very beginning is a really comprehensive movement analysis to look at your gait mechanics, your posture, your balance, your strength, and how all of those things kind of fit into what your current functional ability level is. And then, we specialize in working with people on an individual basis, but we also do some group exercise programs such as the Rock Steady Boxing program, like you guys probably just saw a little video of. And then we also have a Neurofight Club class, which we offer virtually. That is for all. It's for everybody. A lot of our clients there are impacted by a neurological condition, but a lot of we have other spouses and care partners in there as well that are just looking to keep their minds and their brains healthy. So a little about what we do. These are our different locations. I'm here in River North today. We're at Orleans and Walton. For those of you in the city, we also do some satellite services in Edgewater at the Edgewater Fitness Center. And those are other locations here in the area. And it's not Glenview, it's Glenview. So sorry about that. We have a motto here: think big, move strong, and never quit. I think the move strong is the most important factor of that, but certainly the never quit. And I think we always encourage our clients to think bigger than you may think you can, so we can yield the best results, not just from your exercise program, but truly from how you move and feel each and every day. So thank you for letting me talk about something I'm very passionate about. And I will stop sharing my screen now and answer any questions.